Shuklam Brahma Vicharasara Paramamadhyam Jagadvyapinim Veena Pustakadharinim Abhayadam Jadyandhakarapaham Haste Sphatikamalikam Vidadhatim Padmasane Samsthitam Vanditam Parameshwarim Bhagavatim Buddhipradam Sharadam. So we are currently in the Ishavasya-Upanishad discussing the fourth mantra, the conclusion of the fourth mantra. And in general, I did want to say, I understand actually that this is a very sophisticated, very high-level Sanskrit that we are processing, Shankaracharya's Sanskrit, Ramanujacharya's Sanskrit. It's not easy. I appreciate that actually. But nonetheless, I think it's a good exercise to work on a very high level. Then later, it's a short Upanishad. It's only 18 mantras with short commentaries, mostly, short commentary section. So then later we can always go back to easier texts again, obviously. So I hope that you are able to have the patience to go through this quite difficult one. So the context now is the fourth mantra, which speaks about the mind as being faster than the devas. And it is quite interesting. I had a look at Ranga Ramanuja's commentary. So Shankaracharya explains devas to mean the senses, because the senses illumine our mind. They give us information. Information has always been, in ancient Indian traditions, it has always been a form of light. Whenever something gives information, it is like lending light to something. So in that sense, Dyotanat Deva, Shankaracharya says that due to illuminating, they are devas, the senses, so the eyes, the smell, our five senses. But the mind itself, the ordinary mind, is also considered a sense, the sixth sense. Through our mind, we also illuminate information, or we also receive information. So in that sense, it is also a sense. And then he explains that the mantra is to be understood in the sense that even though the mind is currently embodied here in the body, nonetheless, it can reach through its sankalpa, through its intention, it can reach far away places like the Brahmaloka within an instant, since the mind is like a reflection of Chaitanya. Chaitanya means pure consciousness. The mind is like a reflection of pure consciousness, and in this sense can reach there before the devas, before the senses. That means, concretely speaking, before I see something, consciousness is already present with the object that I then later see. Or before I think of something, the pure consciousness of the Atma has already encapsulated that in its unconditioned nature. Now, this was Shankaracharya's explanation. Now, when we go to Ramanujacharya's explanation, it is quite interesting that usually, as I mentioned earlier also, he's always quite in line with Shankaracharya, just adding something to that. But in this case, he actually says that Deva here does mean the Devas. And Devas in this context doesn't mean the supreme Deva like Krishna, but it means Devas such as Indra and so on. And they, how can I translate this? They are slower than our pure consciousness because, and this is very fascinating. Remember, Ramanuja lived sometime between, I think, about 900 years ago. So he was not acquainted with modern science or something like that, physics and so on. But he says, because pure consciousness is not local, it is not limited to a particular desha. Desha means a place in this context. It is not local, whereas he says the devas are local. I don't know if I'm able to bring this across. It's a fascinating explanation. So a deva such as Indra, even a very high deva, in his or her experience is local. localized, whereas the absolute consciousness, Chaitanya, is non-local. It is not at a particular place. And then the example given is a common example, but when we contemplate it, it's very powerful. That when you are dreaming and you experience, let us say, you experience a vast journey in your dream. Imagine you are dreaming that you are traveling from Rishikesh to Delhi. So in the experience that is occurring in your dream, there are steps, there are localized things. Let us say you are speaking to, your car breaks down, and then you have to speak to somebody who will repair your car. And that man in your dream experience is local, isn't it? But if you look at it from the point of view of the mind, of your mind experiencing that dream, your mind is not local at that moment. It is only the people occurring in your dream that seem to be local. Whereas your mind is already in Delhi. It is everywhere in your dream because the dream is occurring in your mind. So in this sense, Sri Ramanuja explains that the absolute Chaitanya of the Supreme, the ultimate Purusha, is non-localized. So now in modern words, we could say what he is saying is that this complex, endless samsara with all the devas, the higher beings in the higher lokas, but also all of us in the lower places or middle and then the lower lokas, we are all occurring in some sense, we are occurring like in the dream of the ultimate Purusha, the ultimate consciousness. It's a fascinating description. Do you have any questions about this?
What word does he use for non-local?
He says that there is no desha. No desha means in modern Indian languages, desha is often used even for country. But in this context, it is not. He says not gochara desha. It is not a place of where the senses graze upon. Gochara has this sense of grazing upon. So there is no locality to which consciousness, the absolute consciousness, is limited. So the word is desha.
Yes, word.
Okay, so is this somehow intelligible also to the others? Or have we completely lost you? Okay, so then let us go back to our text. We are still in the commentary. Shankaracharya's commentary. And so I would suggest here, he explained here that it is like space, like the sky, which is all pervading. So then we continue from here. Sarva vyapi tad atma tattvam sarva samsara dharma varjitam. And in the transliteration here, sarva vyapi tad atma tattvam sarva samsara dharma varjitam. Maybe Ilavati, you could try. It's not so difficult. So speaking about the reality of the Atma, Atma Tattvam.
So I'm here. I was last time not here. So let's see. Sarva Vyapi. Sarva means all.
Sarva means all, yes. And Vyapi.
This I have to check. Spreading everywhere.
Yes, exactly. Tat, Atma Tattvam. That.
Atma, the soul.
Yes, and Tattvam is the reality.
Yeah, and tad, that means the tad begin.
Here the tat is like dieses in German. So diese Wirklichkeit des Atma, diese, right? This is sarvavyapi. It is all pervading. And then the next one is very interesting. Sarva samsara dharma varjitam.
Sarva, all as all, samsara, I don't know how to describe this samsara, like there is no word, but then dharma, varjitam. Varjita means wanting.
Varjitam, yes, but in a different sense, not to want.
To exclude, to avoid.
Yes, so not exactly. So wanting in the sense of not having.
Not having.
Free from. We like to translate it as free from.
It frees from dharma and samsara.
Not quite. So here, the word dharma, see, the word dharma is one of these incredible words that have so many meanings. Here, dharma actually means the Eigenschaften. It is similar to the word guna here. And this is so confusing because the word dharma has all the meanings from, well, dharma as we know it, to phenomena or to Eigenschaften, to qualities. So here it means free from the qualities of, free from all the qualities of samsara. So we have to read it from behind. Varjitam, sarva samsara dharma varjitam. So this reality of the Atma is all pervasive. Free from the qualities of, free from all the qualities of samsara. So now, Iravati, what could be the qualities of samsara if you had to?
The qualities of samsaras, it was something that attachments that you have. This is the qualities of samsaras. To stay in matter. To stay in
what else? What else?
Then wishes. Yes. Material wishes, needs.
Yes.
Also attachments on objects, but also on persons, on animals, on all kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And karma.
Karma, exactly. Yeah. Suffering.
Suffering.
And then one of the
it's caused by all the attachments and karma actually is suffering.
Right, that's right, yes. And one of the key characteristics of samsara is impermanence. That everything occurring within samsara, even in the higher lokas of samsara, all the way to the lower lokas of samsara, is impermanent. Anitya or ashashvata. Krishna says in the Gita, it is the ashashvata dukkhalaya. It is the impermanent place of suffering. Right? That is the nature of samsara. So here the dharma, this is the dharma of samsara, is that it is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. We do not find a single permanent state within samsara. It can abide for a while and then turns into something else. So, but here we say,
these are the good news. These are the good news. These are the good news that everything is impermanent.
Yes, it can be. To the wise, it is a good news. To those with attachment, it's bad news, right? So, exactly. So, whereas here, the Atma Tattva, the reality of the Atma is that it is free from these dharmas of samsara, from these characteristics or qualities. Excellent. Thank you. So then we have Gauri, you could try Svena Nirupadhikena Swarupena Avikriyam eva sat.
Svena nirupadhikena. It's svena.
No. It is just Svena. No.
It's Svena. So it's like me or third case.
It's third case. 3-1 of sva.
So it's like both of nirupadhikena is also 3-1 then.
Correct.
So,
yes.
So third means it's instrumental. So
Yes.
by me, nirupadhikena. What nirupadhikena means, I have to check.
Nirupadhika, we had it in the previous mantra, I believe, in the explanation to the previous mantra. And I spent quite some time explaining it, but I will explain again because this is such an important, I wouldn't even say concept, it's such an important notion, idea in Vedanta, that there is something that is an upadhi, an addition to something else. If you remember, I had given the example of the crystal. Well, we used to have a crystal somewhere. I don't know, where did it go? That's strange. We had a crystal on our shrine. I hope nobody took it. So
Yes, I remember now.
you remember, right? So it's a very well-known example, but it's an example we can contemplate for so long that when something is all-pervading or something is totally pure, like a crystal, and then you add something to it, then within the crystal appears a new light, right? There can appear a red color, for example. And then the fantastic question is the red color actually affecting the crystal? Or is it only appearing in the crystal? What would you say, Gauri?
For me, it depends on the characteristics of the crystal. Like if the crystal is pure itself, red color won't affect really crystal.
Yes, the crystal is pure because it is pure. That's why the red color is appearing in it. If it were not pure, the red color couldn't reflect. Right? So it's because it is pure, therefore the red color is reflected in the crystal. But the question now is, does the crystal, so here the crystal is the Atma Tattvam, right? As in this example. The question now is, does the crystal actually change when the red color appears in it? So the red color is known as upadhi, something that is added onto. Upadhiyate, upadhi. So does the crystal change? Does it actually change when the red color is added to it?
It appears to be changed, but it is not changed.
Fantastic. It appears to be changed. Exactly. So then how do we speak of the crystal without that upadhi? Nirupadhikena. Without that additional appearance.
Yes.
That is then the nirupadhika svarupa. Its own nature without anything added onto it, without any appearance added onto it. Yes?
So its own nature without any added
add-on, you could say, without any add-on, right?
Yeah, own nature. Swarupena. Swarupena is nature.
Yes.
Vikriyam eva. Avikriyam eva. So avikriyam is...
Vikriya means changes, modifications.
So
changes.
Changeless. It remains without...
Changeless, correct. It is without change. And sat is the present participle. Like bhavat or gachat, tishtat from asti. So sat. Here sat is not as in Satchidananda. Slightly different. In Satchidananda, well, it's actually the same word, but it's used differently here. It is the present participle. Atma Tattvam sat, being, seiend in German, being unchanging. So everyone, apart from the grammar, are we clear about upadhi and nirupadhi? Do you have any question about it? Because this is the absolute fundament of Shankaracharya's teaching or his understanding of the Upanishads, is that there is a nirupadhika, a unconditioned, sometimes in Western word we translate it as unconditioned and conditioned, right? Conditioned in the sense of that something is added on. There is an unconditioned nature, true nature, and there is that which appears through add-ons, through conditionings. What are those conditionings? Our ego, our mind, our personalities, our karmas. These are all the things that condition the pure crystal of the Atma Tattva. But then, as Gauri rightly said, they only appear to change it. They only appear to, even though it can be through thousands of lives, but there is no true change occurring. So it's very important to understand this teaching of his, because this will come again and again. Yeah.
One point.
Yes, Shreya.
You speak of the Atma as it, but you could also say you. I mean, they're talking about you.
Yeah, so here he speaks Atma Tattvam. There is no Tvam here. This is Tattvam, Shreya, Tattva. The word Tattva means reality. There is no Tvam here.
There's Atma.
Yes, but you said you, but there is no Tvam.
No. I mean, effectively.
Yes, so of course, but here he's just, we say it just for the sake of speaking about the Atma. When we say you, if we would say you are unconditioned, then we would have to define, what do we mean? Do we mean you as a body, as a mind, as an individual, as someone with an ego? Then we would say, no, you're not unconditioned. You are actually conditioned, isn't it?
Yes, right.
So that's why we have to start distinguishing between the true nature and the appearing nature, that which appears but is not the true, which is only temporary. It's only temporary appearance in samsara. Okay, so now we have. Sorry, yes.
How to go back to the true nature then? Because we are all conditioned.
Of course. Well, that is the teaching, right? That is first. Now the Upanishad started with explaining about that there are two types of people: those who really have the capacity to go back to the true nature, and those who are so attached that it's actually better for them to engage in spiritual activities, right? It started off like that.
Yes.
To engage in spiritual activity and then slowly working, purifying ourselves, slowly working towards coming back to the true nature. But because this is, of course, very high-level teaching, the rest of the Upanishad is primarily about the true nature and how to come back to the true nature. So that is because, you see, there is no point saying there is a true nature. You can come back to it, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm only going to tell you about everything else, right? So that's why the rest of the Upanishad is about that. But because it's such a high-level teaching, we can also say, or we can ask the question, are we really qualified for it? There is a word in Sanskrit, adhikara, that is often also used in these Vedantic teachings. Are we actually qualified for this teaching? If we look at in Shankaracharya's tradition, the qualifications are that we have the capacity of calming our mind, shama, that our mind is calm and peaceful, that we are not the slave of our senses, that we have the senses under control to a certain extent, that we are able to bear and endure the opposites of the ups and downs of life, so that we are not carried away by ups and downs, that we are able to have absolute concentration, that we have complete faith, or we can say trust. These are considered the adhikara, the qualifications in order to actually benefit from these teachings. So now we could ask the question, do any of us qualify?
Yes, that's again a good question. Like, we have to really upgrade ourselves to get qualified for this.
Correct. To actually truly benefit from it. So now we could answer the question by saying, well, perhaps we don't fully qualify, but to some extent, right? We could say at least there's a desire to know. And that is sort of working towards it. But then if we look at the teaching where it says, well, if you don't have these qualifications, you can't really benefit fully, right? So that's why from the outset, the Upanishad says that if there is so much attachment that you are not actually qualified fully, it is better to engage deeply in spiritual activity. Right? So it's a very important point. So we are studying this more as a kind of inspiration to see where it takes us, where it could take us. But we have to see that we are, at least I'm speaking for myself, we have to see that we are not of the level that we qualify to go beyond spiritual activities, where we can simply realize ourselves just like that. We are not of that level. You understand? So it's like we are navigating both sides. We are studying it in order to gain a deeper understanding. And at the same time, we have the humility to admit that we are not fully qualified to be of this level. And therefore, we are engaged in spiritual activity to purify ourselves. Is that clear somehow?
Yes. Thank you.
So then, avikriyameva sat. So now we have upadhi kritaha sarvaha samsara vikriyaha anubhavati. Iva avivekinam mudhanam anekam ivacha pratideham pratyavabhasate. Iti tad aha. So this is quite a long sentence. Maybe Shrita, you can just start and we see how far you get.
Right. Upadhi kritaha. Upadhi kritaha. Sarvaha samsara vikriya again.
Vikriyaha.
Vikriya, which
there is a sandhi there. There is a visarga.
So it's dropped the visarga.
Mm-hmm.
Anubhavati iva.
Yeah.
Avivekinam.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mudhanam. Mudhanam.
Maybe we go up to here. That's the first part of the sentence.
Okay. So upadhi, this is again the upadhi we had with nirupadikena.
Yes.
So upadhi krita would be made.
Yes, brought about, produced, made, yes.
The conditions brought about.
No. Made by conditions, made by the upadhis, these add-ons.
Made by the superimposed thing, a condition. Sarvaha samsara vikriyaha. So this is plural, singular, plural, huh?
Not singular, you mean is a second case plural.
Plural. Oh.
Yes, but accusative. It is like mala. Mala, male, malaha, malam, male, malaha. Because when it's a feminine word ending in a, then the accusative, the second case plural, is also ending in aha. Yeah, if you've learned these by heart.
Yes, okay.
And then anubhavati. It experiences. Who is the it? Who is the subject of anubhavati? Atma tattvam. The reality of the Atma experiences all the vikriyaha, the modifications, the changes of samsara, which are brought about kritaha through the upadhis, through the add-ons. So we come back to the example. There is the crystal. That is the pure Atma Tattva. It experiences the changes. So let's say the color red or other colors appearing, brought about through the add-ons, red flower or whatever else. It experiences those. Anubhavati iva. Now that is the key word here. Srividya, iva.
Yes, anubhavati is the verb from like anubhava.
Anubhavati means experience, but then there's one word added onto it. Anubhavati iva.
Yeah, so it's as if it's not real.
It seems to experience. See, that is like Gauri said before, that there is the crystal and it seems to change, but doesn't actually change. And this is the case for avivekinam mudhanam.
So that's just the foolish without viveka.
For the deluded who do not have viveka. Here, viveka, aviveki is like one who doesn't have viveka. Aviveka. Viveka is the ability to distinguish between truth and untruth.
And mudha is like in the song, the Govinda.
Yes.
Mudha.
Mudha here, mudha mate.
Yeah.
So mudha means someone who is deluded, someone who is confused, deluded. So for those who are deluded in the plural,
That's
of
plural.
those, literally it's the genitive, of those who are deluded, who do not have viveka, the Atma Tattva, the reality of the Atma, seems to experience the modifications, all the modifications of samsara brought about or made by the upadhis, the add-ons. Is it clear grammatically to everybody? Okay.
So accusative, because anubhavati is the verb, so that takes the object is the upadhi kritaha.
Exactly. Upadhi kritaha sarvaha samsara vikriyaha. All that is the object. 2.3. All the words.
And then avivekanam, that's what genitive you said.
6.3. Of those who do not have viveka, who are mudha, who are deluded, of those, the Atma Tattva seems to experience.
Can I ask something?
Please.
So if I understand, the Atma Tattva, it seems to experience. So it means that it is not for Atma, for soul, everything is not real. It doesn't exist actually.
No, it doesn't mean it's not real. So we can go for hours and hours or centuries, we can discuss this. So if you look at the crystal, the red is appearing in the crystal. It's not as if it's not appearing, right? It's real. But if you look at it from the point of view of the crystal, it is only an add-on that appears. Do you see? And if the moment you removed that add-on, the ignorance or the ego, if we removed that, then the crystal would be in its own nature, nirupadhi sarupa.
So what's with karma? Is karma attached to the soul or not?
Karma is an upadhi in this teaching. Karma is something that is added on. So it is not actually, it is just something that seems to condition, seems to change the crystal of the Atma Tattva, appears to change it, but is not truly changing it.
Okay. I understand. So it could end also anytime.
It can end, correct.
Yeah.
So it's because it doesn't actually change it. That's why it can end.
Okay, thank you. Now it's clear.
Good. So then we have the second part. Anekam iva cha pratideham pratyavabhasate. So I'll have to help you here a little bit. Rameshji, I do see you're also there, but I will help you a little bit here. Anekam. Anekam means not. It means not just one. It means manifold, many. Anekam iva, as if many. Cha pratideham. Do you have any idea, Rameshji? Pratideham.
Prati means the other deham.
No, prati means each.
Oh yeah, prati, yeah, prati pala, yeah, each.
In each deha. Deha means?
Deha means body.
Body, exactly. And any idea about pratyavabhasate? Pratyavabhasate means it is reflected, or it shines, but it means really it is reflected. Pratyavabhasate. So this is where I had to help you a little bit. So cha, and in each body it appears, or it is reflected as if it is many. So the same Atma Tattva, whose true nature is pure consciousness, appears to be different in your body, Rameshji, in Ilavati's body, in my body, even though its true nature, its essence is actually not different. That doesn't mean we are just one soup. It is not meant like that. We're not just one soup, but the point here is that in our true nature, we are all the same, in the sense of we all have that true Atma Tattva, that true reality of the Atma, but it appears to be completely different when we look at a dog, or we look at a cat, or even among humans. It seems to be completely different. There seems to be no common ground, but in reality, it is all there. There is that fundamental oneness or sameness, we could say. Iti etad aha. This is what the Upanishad says. Aha means said, or iti, thus, etad aha. This is what the Upanishad said. Okay. Then I know it's quite high level Sanskrit, but I think you do get it somehow. Yes.
Just a question. Pratya,
Yes.
what is the meaning of pratya? Just as a word, pratya.
No, it is prati avabhasate. This is a verb. It's an atmanepada verb, like vandate. It's not avabhasati, it is avabhasate. And here we have prati avabhasate. It is reflected. And very often, if you remember, I once promised you all in the beginning, I would sometimes refer to some Buddhist explanations as well, because they are sometimes useful. So there's a beautiful example given in Buddha's teachings, where our true nature is like the sun, and we all are like pots, and the pots they're like open pots, and they are filled with water. That is our life force, our like individual life force. And in each of these pots, the sunlight is being reflected, and in each pot it looks a little different, but the sun is the same sunlight. So here, this pratyavabhasate, you can sort of understand it a little bit like that when we are limited to our ego, when we're conditioned by our ego, by our karmas, by our individuality, then we are like these individual pots, pratideham, individual bodies. And the Atma Tattva is reflected seemingly as different in each of them.
Thank you.
Capacity to reflect the light is what makes the individual to be different. Like
what makes the individual to be different are the upadhis, the individual add-ons. So, for example, Rameshji, in innumerable previous lives, you have accumulated your own types of karmas. I have accumulated my own types of karmas. So these karmas are upadhis, they are add-ons. Therefore, they cause you to seem completely different from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. So then we have from the mantra itself, tat dhāvataha dhrutam gacchataha anyan. So in the mantra, if we go back to the mantra above, we had already covered grammatically this part, that dhāvataha anyan atyeti. It outruns the other runners. Tishtat, if you remember, while remaining still. Tishtat. While remaining still, or while remaining unmoving, it outruns the other runners. So now he is explaining this part, that dhāvataha dhrutam gacchataha. Dhrutam means fast. Those that are fast moving. Anyan, the others. What are the others? Atma vilakshanan. They are different from the nature of the Atma itself. So this true nature, they are all upadhi driven, so to speak. They are all upadhi driven. They are different from the true nature. And what are they? Manaha, mano, vak, indriya, prabhritin. So the ordinary mind, speech, indriya, the senses, prabhritin. Prabhriti means etc. It is like the word adi that is also often used. So prabhriti, etc. Atyeti we had from the verse, from the mantra, and he explains atyeti to mean atitya gacchati iva, seeming to transcend, to be faster, to move faster than. So the Atma Tattva, outruns the other runners. Who are the other runners? The ordinary mind, speech, the senses, and so forth. It seems to transcend them at all times.
That means even though we have these kind of vices, still the Atma tries to reflect or send out its original nature. So
yes, we can say not tries to, but the original nature is always there, actually. And it's because the original nature is there, that's why we actually have the possibility of coming out of samsara. If the original nature were not there, we would never be able to evolve to the point where we can come out of samsara. It's a very fascinating. We can never
be stuck with the anger and other vices.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Then, so this one I had to help you all. Now we can do one more short sentence. Ivartam svayam eva darshayati. Maybe Ilavati, you can try this. Tishtat iti. Iva artam svayam eva darshayati.
Iva artam svayam eva darshayati. Artha is senses, meaning.
Yes, the meaning, yes. Mm-hmm. So, Iva artam. The meaning of Iva.
The meaning of Iva.
So, okay. Iva means seemingly.
Okay.
So the meaning of Iva, the meaning of seemingly, also die Bedeutung des Wortes scheinbar. Svayam eva darshayati. So the Upanishad mantra, he says, is itself, darshayati means to show, is itself showing the meaning of the word Iva, of the word seeming. It's a little difficult. What he's meaning to say is that this example of the crystal which I gave is not just our example. It's not just, we are not just interpreting this into the Upanishad, but in fact, the Upanishad itself is showing the meaning of seeming. How is it showing that? Through the example of Tishtat. Tishtat, while remaining still, it outruns all the other runners. So in this simile, in diesem Beispiel, gibt die Upanishad selber die Erklärung des Wortes, dass es nur scheinbar stattfindet. So in this example, the Upanishad itself is showing how it is only seemingly occurring, how change only seemingly occurs. Why? Because it is remaining still, but it outruns all the other runners. So his point is that this example shows us that the Upanishad itself is explaining it is only a seeming change. Yeah? Is it somehow clear?
Yeah. Thank you.
Svayam avikriyam eva sat iti arthaha. Gaurimi, let's finish with this one. Svayam avikriyam eva sat iti arthaha.
Swayam is one, like oneself.
Yes.
Vikriyam,
itself.
Vikriyam.
No. Avikriyam.
Avikriyam is again unchangeable or unchanged.
Unchanging.
Unchanging. Eva. Saditya. Sat artha.
Iti artha. Iti artha.
So it is unchangeable. Itself is unchangeable. That it means that it itself is unchangeable.
Correct. Exactly. It means that it itself is unchanging while appearing to. Right. So this is the meaning of Iva. Iva artam darshayati. So now, just before we finish, grammatically, we have covered everything. So now you asked the question, Gauri, like, how do we come to that true nature? One beginning point is to understand that we can observe that everything is impermanent, the samsara dharmas that Ilavati elaborated upon. We can observe all those. We can observe attachment. We can observe desire. We can observe suffering. We can, isn't it, right? That is, we can actually observe that. And at the same time, we can know that there is, and how do we know this? We know it through the teaching of the Vedas. We know it through the teaching of the Upanishads, of the Bhagavad Gita, and so on and so forth, that there is a reality that is beyond these changes, that beyond the samsara dharmas. So we can begin with what we can actually see, the samsara dharmas. We can ourselves explore how these samsara dharmas in fact cause suffering. Isn't it? Would you agree with that, Gauri?
Yes. Actually, does it mean that all these samsara dharma or upadhis, they make yourself, whereas in true nature, everybody is at the same level?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, correct. So you see, the teaching about the true nature of ourselves, that is something which initially we have to take on faith. But the teaching about the samsara dharmas is not something we need to take on faith. We can take a highly rational, even atheistic person, and we can have a discussion with them, and we can point out that strong attachment leads to suffering. That strong desire, dissatisfaction, sort of never being content leads to suffering. That and even that person will agree everything is impermanent. So these are not something we need to take on faith. Would you agree?
Yes.
What we initially then take on faith through the grace of the Guru, through the grace of the tradition, of the lineage, of the Vedas, of the teaching, is that beyond these samsara dharmas, there is a reality that is beyond the samsara dharmas. That is, of course, something we need to initially take on faith. But then as we progress on the spiritual path, we get a deeper and deeper intuition of it, a deeper and deeper also, we could say, experience or taste of it ourselves. So then it is no longer just on faith. So I would say we can sort of take it a step by step. We can begin with what is evident, the samsara dharmas, and then slowly we can begin to transcend the samsara dharmas in our spiritual path.
So one has to really understand that nothing is permanent.
Oh yeah,
that's the bottom line of everything. That even if you are happy, even if you are suffering, even if you are having a lot of wealth or whatever it is, but it's not. Don't take it granted.
Correct. Yes.
It's not going to be permanent.
Absolutely correct. Yes, that is the realizing the nature of the samsara dharmas. Correct.
Can you explain samsara dharma?
So samsara dharmas, Rameshji, means Ilavati had a good description before. They are all the temporary qualities, such as attachment on the one side, or aversion, raga and dvesha. Then usually we speak of the samsara dharma as being impermanence, that everything in samsara is impermanent, that is constantly changing, that it is vikriyam, all the time changing. There is no permanent state in samsara. It can remain for a while, like a mountain, right, Rameshi? A mountain can remain for maybe millions of years, but even that mountain, we know, is all the time slightly, constantly changing. And if you look at it from the point of view of hundreds of millions of years, even the mountain completely changes. We know from modern science that even the Himalayas, the Alps, all the mountains that we think are something unchanging, that over that 100 million years ago, they were not there. We know that. It's completely different. So that means even that, which in our ordinary experience seems to be unchanging, even a mountain is actually changing. We know from science that in this physical universe, all the planets, all the galaxies are constantly moving. Even our sun is constantly in movement. So there is nothing in this, even in this physical universe, that is actually static, that is stable. Not to speak of the internal universe. You can observe yourself, Rameshji, that
I'm
if you
trying to
observe,
understand by splitting the word samsara means more than one meaning. One is, I think, pain is also called samsara.
absolutely. Now, one of the second qualities of samsara dharmas, is that samsara is not only always impermanent, it is also always dissatisfactory. It is dukkha.
Yeah, dukkha, yeah.
The nature of samsara is that it is always dukkha. Within samsara, there is no permanent sukha. It always deteriorates into dukkha. In the Yoga Sutra commentary of Vyasa, there is a fantastic passage where one of the great Sankhya masters, Sankhya was one of the great darshanas in ancient India. Unfortunately, about 1,200, 300 years ago, the last Sankhya masters for some reason existed and then no longer exist today. About 1,300 years ago, the last Sankhya master sort of vanished. And there's an ancient Sankhya master called Panchashikha. These are names you haven't heard because they are no longer famous today. And he has a discussion with his guru, and Vyasa reports this in the Yoga Sutra commentary. And the question is this, that now you have achieved such a height of realization that you can see all your previous lives, up to many kalpas. Kalpa is an era, like an eon. You can see all your previous lives in samsara, right? So now looking back, he asks him, looking back to all your previous lives, what was more, sukha or dukkha? Was there more happiness or was there more pain, suffering? And then Panchashikha, without even waiting for a moment, says that in all these lives, there was only a tiny bit of sukha and the majority of it was dukkha. Yeah, so that is the nature of samsara. It's very fascinating to read that conversation, that even a great master, right, when they are able to look back over all their lives and then they compare, it's like a sort of I'm not an accountant, maybe one of you is an accountant, but then they are putting the balance, what was more, dukkha or sukha? Then looking at all the lives, the majority was dukkha. So that is very fascinating.
Thank you.
All right. So, yes. So, Gauri, that is sort of the answer to begin with what actually is evident, the samsara dharmas, which is evident even to an atheist. If you have a reasonable conversation with them, it is not deniable. And then to work from there towards that which initially we have to take on faith, and then slowly we begin to have a direct taste of it. Right. So let us finish here. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. But maybe just a last point, but there's also great joy in the teaching, because the teaching is that the samsara dharmas are not absolute, that they are only temporary appearances in the crystal of our true nature. Yeah, so this is actually a joyous teaching. It is not a teaching of being sad or being unhappy. It's actually a teaching of, look, don't worry, these temporary karmas, these temporary things you are undergoing, they are not absolute. Yeah, so actually we need to see it from this point. Actually, it's a joyful teaching. All right. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
And when is the next class?
Yes.